70 to 85 million lives. Let that number sink in. It's a figure so vast it's almost impossible to comprehend. It represents nearly 3% of the entire world's population in 1940, a generation of humanity decimated. That is the estimated human cost of the Second World War, the single deadliest conflict in all of human history, a cataclysm that reshaped our world in ways we are still grappling with today. To try and grasp the scale, imagine a massive stadium, one that can hold 80,000 people. Picture every single seat filled, a sea of faces, each with a story, a family, a future. Now imagine having to fill that stadium to capacity, empty it, and fill it again, 1,000 times over. That is the magnitude of the loss we are talking about. An ocean of absence. How did the world arrive at such a precipice? The war didn't begin in a vacuum in 1939. The seeds were sown much earlier, in the unresolved tensions of World War I and the economic despair of the Great Depression. In 1931, the Empire of Japan, seeking resources and territory, invaded Manchuria in northeastern China, establishing a puppet state. The world condemned the action, but did little else. A dangerous precedent was set. In 1935, Fascist Italy under Benito Mussolini invaded Ethiopia, one of Africa's only independent nations. Again, the League of Nations proved powerless. In Germany, Adolf Hitler, fueled by a doctrine of racial supremacy and territorial expansion, began to openly defy the Treaty of Versailles. He remilitarized the Rhineland in 1936, a direct challenge to the post-war order. Emboldened, he annexed Austria in the Anschluss of 1938. Later that year, at the Munich Conference, Britain and France, desperate to avoid another war, appeased Hitler by allowing him to take the Sudetenland from Czechoslovakia. It was a promise of peace for our time that would prove tragically hollow. The following spring, he seized the rest of the country. The path to war was now clear. On September 1, 1939, Germany invades Poland, unleashing a new form of warfare, the Blitzkrieg, or Lightning War, a terrifying combination of speed, surprise, and overwhelming force. Honoring their commitment to Poland, Britain declares war on Germany. France, its ally, follows suit. The continent and soon the world was once again plunged into conflict. What started as a European conflict quickly metastasized into a true world war, fought across a staggering number of theaters. It was fought in the skies over Britain, where the Royal Air Force valiantly defended the nation against the German Luftwaffe during the Blitz. It was fought in the unforgiving deserts of North Africa, where control of the Suez Canal and Middle Eastern oil fields was paramount. It was fought in the cold, dark depths of the Atlantic, where German U-boats hunted Allied convoys in a desperate battle of supply lines. It was fought in the vast, frozen forests and steppes of Eastern Europe, the site of the largest and bloodiest clashes in history between Germany and the Soviet Union. It was fought across the countless islands of the Pacific, in brutal campaigns of jungle warfare and amphibious assaults. And it was fought in the cities and countryside of China, which had already been resisting Japanese invasion for years, enduring unimaginable suffering. This was a total war. The lines between the battlefield and the home front blurred, and then vanished completely. This wasn't just armies fighting armies. Civilians were deliberately targeted. Cities like London, Dresden, and Tokyo were systematically bombed, turning homes into infernos. Civilians were starved as blockades and scorched earth policies led to widespread famine in places like the Netherlands, Greece, and Bengal. And civilians were displaced on a scale never seen before, creating millions of refugees fleeing violence, persecution, and collapsing nations. At the heart of this devastation was the Holocaust, the systematic, state-sponsored genocide, where Nazi Germany and its collaborators murdered 6 million European Jews. It was an industrial-scale slaughter, born of a hateful ideology that deemed an entire people unworthy of life. But the Nazi regime's victims were many. Hundreds of thousands of Romani people were targeted and killed in a parallel genocide. Millions of Poles and other Slavic peoples were murdered, enslaved, and displaced to make way for German settlement. Disabled people were systematically persecuted and killed in the so-called euthanasia programs, and countless others, political opponents, homosexuals, Jehovah's Witnesses, were imprisoned, tortured, and murdered for defying Nazi ideology. In Asia, Imperial Japan's invasion brought its own reign of terror. The brutal occupation of China led to mass deaths, epitomized by the Nanjing Massacre of 1937, where hundreds of thousands of civilians and unarmed soldiers were killed in a matter of weeks. Across the Pacific, conquered populations faced forced labor, starvation, and horrific violence. In this sprawling global conflict, the tide of war did not turn at once, but in a series of brutal, hard-fought turning points. In 1940, Britain holds on by a thread in the Battle of Britain, preventing a German invasion and ensuring the war would continue. In the winter of 1941, the seemingly invincible German army stalls at the gates of Moscow, halted by the brutal Russian winter and fierce Soviet resistance. On December 7, 1941, the U.S. is thrust into the war after Japan's surprise attack on the naval base at Pearl Harbor. The sleeping giant awakens. Just 6 months later, at the Battle of Midway, the U.S. Navy inflicts a devastating blow on the Japanese fleet, sinking 4 of its aircraft carriers and forever flipping the strategic balance in the Pacific. From 1942 to 1943, Germany bleeds its Sixth Army to death in the rubble of Stalingrad. The catastrophic defeat marks the beginning of the end for the Third Reich on the Eastern Front. On June 6, 1944, D-Day, the Allies launched the largest amphibious invasion in history, storming the beaches of Normandy to crack open Fortress Europe's western wall and begin the liberation of France. By 1945, as the war ground towards its conclusion, the full scale of the devastation became horrifyingly clear. The numbers are almost beyond belief. The Soviet Union bore the heaviest burden, losing an estimated 27 million people, soldiers and civilians alike. Nearly 1 in 7 of its pre-war population was gone. China, after 14 long years of war, suffered as many as 20 million dead. Poland was shattered, losing about 6 million citizens, half of them Polish Jews, a fifth of its entire population. Germany, the nation that began the war in Europe, was left shattered, with over 7 million dead and its cities reduced to rubble. Japan too was shattered, its empire dismantled, and its people facing nearly 3 million dead. The final, terrible chapter of the war was written in the sky. On August 6, 1945, the city of Hiroshima is hit with an atomic bomb, a weapon of unprecedented power. 3 days later, Nagasaki is hit with a second atomic bomb. Japan surrendered. The war was over. But it ended with the dawn of a terrifying new nuclear reality. The aftermath was a world transformed. Borders were redrawn across Europe and Asia. Great colonial empires began to crumble, giving way to a new era of decolonization and independence movements. From the ashes, the United Nations was born, a global body founded with the primary mission to prevent such a catastrophe from ever happening again. This was followed by the Universal Declaration of Human Rights, a landmark document establishing for the first time the fundamental rights and freedoms to which all humans are entitled. Yet, the end of one conflict gave rise to another. The Cold War began, pitting former allies against each other, superpowers staring each other down across an ideological divide, armed with arsenals of nuclear weapons no one should ever use. So why do we remember this history? Why sift through the pain and the loss? We remember because behind every incomprehensible statistic, there is a face, a name, a life interrupted, a story cut short, a universe of potential extinguished. We remember because it teaches us how easily propaganda can turn ordinary days into catastrophe. We remember because it shows us how racism, institutionalized and weaponized, can turn ordinary days into catastrophe. And we remember because it proves that indifference, the choice to look away from the suffering of others, can turn ordinary days into catastrophe. And finally, we remember because peace isn't automatic. It is not the default state of human affairs. It is a fragile construct, something we must choose every day. It is something we must actively protect. And it is something we must diligently teach to every new generation. 70 to 85 million lost. A debt that can never be repaid, but a lesson that must never be forgotten.